In 2025, entrepreneurs tackled deeply entrenched challenges in manufacturing, defense, and science. From solving strategic geopolitical issues like China's dominance in drone production, to optimizing costs in space, these founders and industry leaders are working to redefine what's possible. This is a collection of 5 of this year's standout cutting-edge businesses across manufacturing and engineering. If you'd like to watch the full videos, we'll link them in the description below. Blake Resnick, the 25-year-old founder of Seattle-based Brink, is on a mission to challenge China's dominance in drone manufacturing and provide specialized, American-made technology for police departments. Inspired by a 2017 mass shooting in his native Las Vegas, Resnick worked with the city's police department to develop the company's flagship drone, the Lemur, which is designed for SWAT teams. It features unique capabilities like a glass breaker attachment and integrated two-way audio designed for high-risk police operations.
The mission that I'm really focused on for Brink is lowering global emergency response times to less than a minute. Our core strategy is simply to build the best drones ever for our end users, and to be very precise about who those end users are, so we can build them the right things and, the correct differentiated products and features.
And while the company's long-term goal may be to be the DJI of the West, right now, the focus is on public safety.
In the entire United States, there are probably 100 police and fire stations that actually have drone recharging pods on their roof right now. So right now, it's all about increasing that number from like 100 to 40,000. So it's a matter of doubling down on what we already do well and also broadening our product portfolio so we have the right drones for every public safety agency that's interested in adopting our technology.
In October 2017, a 17-year-old Resnick was at his childhood home in Las Vegas when a mass shooting broke out just 20 minutes away. A gunman had opened fire on attendees of the Route 91 Harvest Music Festival from the 32nd floor of a nearby hotel, killing 58 and injuring more than 400.
I knew some people that were along the strip during the October 1 shooting, which is the Mandalay Bay shooting, and that's what got me thinking about public safety. I've always loved drones, but I wasn't thinking about building drones for first responders until that happened.
Affected by the tragedy, Resnick bombarded the local Las Vegas Metro Police Department with requests for a meeting, and Lieutenant Will Hudler decided he'd listen.
When I transferred to the SWAT team was, I think, September 29th. And so October 1st was my 3rd day as a SWAT commander. And I realized very quickly that we were underserved in many ways. And many of the capabilities that I assumed we had based on what I was told and read before taking the role, I learned very quickly that we no longer had those capabilities.
They agreed to have lunch with me, which was surprising, positive development.
If there was someone local that was going to add some value to our missions and allow us to send more people home safely at the end of a shift, I owe it to my team and the community to hear them out.
In the beginning of the interaction, we talked about October 1, but then the conversation broadened to the rest of their jobs. The high-risk warrant searches and barricades and hostage rescue missions they have to deal with on a daily basis. And I thought if they could just get eyes and ears in dangerous places, that would be a life-saving capability for them regularly. And I thought I could build that. So went back to my mom's house and engineered the first version of what became the Lemur drone, which was Brink's first product.
He called and he's like, I got something I want to show you. And we're watching as this young man is flying a drone under cars and inside our closets. And we're just thinking, wow, because those are all places we have to put human beings to make sure things are clear before we give someone their house back.
They asked me to fly into this dark room because SWAT callouts always happen in the middle of the night, and my night vision system basically didn't work at all. And then this negative feedback kind of culminated in one of their officers grabbing a towel, walking up to my flying aircraft, slapping it out of the sky in front of this huge crowd, and then telling me,
dude, this is what's gonna happen. The moment you fly in a house, that's what's gonna happen.
If the drone doesn't have some way to flip itself over, take back off, and continue a mission, it would be totally operationally useless to them. So it's like, man, that is a brutal way to explain that to me, you know?
But Resnick didn't give up. 3 months after his humbling experience with the Vegas team, Resnick called back, and this time with a drone that could actually ride itself. Hudler impressed, invited Resnick to join the SWAT team for some ride-alongs to continue his research and actually improve the drone.
Blake went on probably 24 call-outs, which is complete forgiveness over permission. And so his presence, his attitude, his work ethic, and his desire to help us find a solution, I think resonated with the team, and they all wanted to see what this kid could do. We squeezed the tactical helmet over that beautiful head of hair and we brought him out, right? So he saw the operations, he saw how they fail, and immediately he reached out to me. He's like, man, you guys are severely underserved with technology. And it was just, it's true, absolutely true.
Together, Resnick and the Vegas SWAT team developed the Lemur, which would become Brink's flagship drone.
Our aircraft would find someone hiding in a closet, for example, that SWAT didn't know was there. Or I built the first drone in the world to have an integrated two-way audio system. And there were a number of instances where crisis communicators were able to use our drone to make contact with someone where before they were unreachable. And that resulted in some really positive outcomes. And after we accumulated maybe 5 or 6 of those wins, Vegas became our first customer, which to this day I'm incredibly grateful for.
Waymos are suddenly everywhere, and the first flying cars are being tested in the Middle East right now. But with any transition in transportation, whether that's electric vehicles, self-driving cars, or flying cars, comes the need to make sure safety comes first. At the Forbes BLK Summit in Atlanta this year, Josh Aviv, founder and CEO of SparkCharge, and Sandra Sutton-Fung, general manager of global trucking at Ford Motor Company, spoke about what will be required to build out better transportation systems that are safe and convenient for everyone.
Future of transportation, I think it's amazing right now in terms of what's happening. I'm located in Bangkok, Thailand right now. I run Ford Motor Company's truck business, and what I'm seeing in the world is amazing. So as you mentioned, the first flying car concept in the Middle East, but it's also looking at how the world is actually reacting differently to regulations. So what will happen in the future will depend on our ability to provide safety to our consumers, because no one wants to drive anything that's not safe. It will depend on regulatory requirements, and it will also depend on our ability to adapt to the change in environments. And so what I see in the future is absolutely a flying car, and people say, why, the Jetsons? I'm like, guys, we've had airplanes that are 10, 20 times heavier flying in the air for how many years? So this isn't a matter of can it be done, it's about when it will be done and what is the necessary infrastructure that will be required to actually make it happen.
Yeah. Josh, I want to dive into your company right fast, SparkCharge. I had a chance when me and you met last year, Forbes BLK lister, 50 lister, Forbes BLK 50
Yes,
lister. And in May, you just closed a Series A, right? Series A1, $30 million, Josh, raised, $30 million.
Thank you.
As of last year, your company was valued at about $200 million, $220 million.
Yes, sir.
I'm assuming it's more now.
Well, yeah.
And it is a mobile electric vehicle charger, right? It is kind of designed to eliminate range anxiety, right? That anxiety where a lot of people who are not buying electric cars, one of the reasons why is because they're afraid that if they buy one and they're driving in the middle of somewhere, right, where are they going to find a charging station, right? The infrastructure is not there yet. This is where you come in at, Josh. Explain SparkCharge for people who may not know and the problem that you're trying to solve.
So at SparkCharge, we are the world's largest off-grid EV charging network. We have coverage across all 50 states, Canada, and Mexico, and we're expanding into the Middle East and Europe. But when you think about electrification, right, every vehicle needs to be charged, but sometimes infrastructure isn't there. And with SparkCharge, we developed a mobile DC fast charger. So imagine taking a charging station and combining it with a battery pack and putting it on wheels so that it can be delivered to EV owners and fleets across the United States. To date, we service some of the largest EV fleets on planet Earth. Everything from rideshare with Uber to Amazon to autonomous vehicles like the Waymos of the world. We're charging their vehicles day in and day out, and it's something that we expect to see grow year over year over year as more people adopt electric vehicles and as more fleets grow to adopt electric vehicles.
Yeah. Sandra, explain your role at Ford, right? I know you're running a truck business there, but what problems is the company trying to solve? I mean, you're talking about one of the biggest automotive makers in all of the world, and here you are in Thailand. You know, what is your role? What is Ford trying to solve?
One of the things I think is always very interesting is that, you know, Ford has been helping people move for over 100 years. So I have been lucky enough in my role over the last few years to celebrate our 100th anniversary in South Africa, our 100th anniversary in Australia. And what it means is really that we are truly a global company servicing the world. My role as general manager of our truck business, I manage all of our truck business outside of the US. And you say, okay, how much is that worth? Well, it's worth billions. And what it does is we send our vehicles to over 180 markets across the world. And we have an opportunity, we're the #2 truck, mid-sized pickup truck in the world. I'm working really hard, guys, on #1. So that is my new day job, to try to get to #1. But what I will say is it's important for us when you think about what's happening in the US, as it relates to regulatory and compliance, there's a completely different landscape in the world. In Europe, 2035, there's a complete ICE ban. Complete ICE ban. So that means ICE is the normal vehicle, gasoline vehicle that you drive today. So I am actually preparing for that in Europe. Josh is having to deal with, in the US, a rollback of regulations on a lot of things that are happening in the EV business. In Australia, we have a new vehicle emission standards that requires me to deliver a different type of vehicle for that Australia customer. So all over the world, and I mentioned this earlier, regulation drive how we actually deliver products and services to our communities. And it's going to be extremely important for us because if you think about our essential workers, our essential economy, you know, we think about, you know, our firefighters, our first responders, builders, the farmers, they're the backbone of our society, right? And we need to support them with our products. That's a goal of mine. But more importantly, if we don't have that level of support for the base people who support our economy, we call it the essential economy, how can we actually expand and make this an opportunity for the world? So regulations, understanding what's happening in the world, and for you guys, understanding that there's so many opportunities outside of the US as well. Don't think, what can I build as the next great thing just for the US market? There are so many opportunities worldwide where you have this opportunity to deliver what that market needs for that moment.
Yeah, specifically, Sandra, I want to piggyback off that because I know this is very important to you, right? For people to open up their minds and looking outside of this country, right? She lives in Thailand, right? Making it in Thailand, right? What should people understand about living abroad and about, you know, again, opening up their perspective to leave where they at and get out of their comfort zone to go over there, because a lot of great things are happening, specifically in transportation and internationally.
Absolutely. I have been with Ford Motor Company for 28 years. 14 of those years have been overseas. So in Thailand, in Japan, and in China. And so for me, having an opportunity to work in the, you know, fastest growing market in the world in China, to the highest level of technology and discipline in Japan, and in Thailand, which is an emerging market, which has completely different needs, right? Toyota just launched last year a $13,000 pickup truck. $13,000. And you know what's super cool about that pickup truck? You can go in, and if you want to start your own business, they will have it, a modifier, change it into a coffee shop on the back of the truck, and they will finance both the truck, your franchise license, and the modifications under one umbrella, under one payment. They're amazing because they know that these emerging markets are the base ground for expanding their business even more. Toyota's #1. You would think they would be sitting down like, we're #1. Sandra's still trying to catch up with us because she's #2. But no, they're continuing to innovate, and they're continuing to make sure that even the person who makes the least amount of money has an opportunity to progress and provide for their families. And that's what it's all about when we talk about essential economies and the people who are the backbone of our economy. But don't just look inside the US, look for that innovation everywhere in the world. Because I know some of you are gonna take Toyota's idea today and gonna go think about how can you build it out, because it's a great idea and it helps so many people enter the world of mobility.
Josh, Sandra was mentioning something earlier about regulatory environment, rollbacks. Here you are in the U.S., she's in Thailand moving forward. Here we are going back, right? The administration that's in office now are rolling back EV incentives, right? And so as an entrepreneur and an owner, how are you adjusting to that? Goldman Sachs, at one point, our partners, they had predicted that EV sales will be 25% of global car sales, right, in 2030. That's down from 28%. And so they're understanding that people are shifting back to hybrid vehicles because of the range anxiety, because they don't have any incentive to buy EVs. How are you adjusting as a company owner, as a CEO?
Yeah, so I think when we think about electrification here in the United States, I think the first thing we did was we went about it the wrong way. We made it very political instead of making it, just based on the dollar and the penny, right? There's no doubt, right, that owning an electric vehicle, if you own an electric vehicle, you will save money, right? It's very low maintenance. You can charge at home. You don't have to go to the gas station. The experience is better, and the cost savings are better than owning a gas vehicle here in the United States today. And so I think as that starts to come more to light, I think people will continue to adopt electric vehicles here in the United States. On the fleet side, right, when we think about autonomous vehicle fleets, there's no autonomous vehicle fleet out there right now that uses a gas vehicle. They all use EVs. And that's because the maintenance is so low. If you have a car out on the road driving 24/7, right, you want that vehicle to be electric because it's cheap to fuel, it's low maintenance, and it can drive an incredible distance around a city. And so when we think about electrification in the United States, we see not only will consumers continue to adopt as they see the savings, but we're also seeing fleets now continue to adopt because the savings are so large and so vast. On a global scale, I think when we think about electrification looking forward, right now in the United States, with the policy that we have in place, we are playing basically defense instead of offense. So when we look at American automakers, it's like, yes, you have the US market, and that's great. And I think some US automakers say, well, we let the Toyotas of the world into America, right? And we beat them out, and we're number one here in the US. But there are other automakers, right, on a global standard from other countries that are getting large market share in Europe, in the Middle East, in South America, in Asia, and we are just focused here on North America. And so you can't play defense and expect to win a game, right? You have to play offense. And I think that's really gonna start coming to light, is that if American OEMs and automakers wanna win the game, right, they have to play offense and get EVs, low-cost EVs, into these other markets outside the United States where where they can capture more market share there.
Building new hardware, especially in high-stakes aerospace, presents immense hurdles. For Mach 5 aviation, the difficulty lies not only in the engineering, but also in securing the private capital needed to finance solving immense technical challenges. Hermeus, an alum of the Forbes Next Billion-Dollar Startups list, has raised some $350 million to build super-fast, hypersonic passenger airplanes. Imagine going from New York to London in 90 minutes. They've still got a long way to go, but a partnership with the Air Force could help them get there.
Nobody is really working on bringing reusability to hypersonics. And we thought that was really the key to making them cost-effective and then therefore actually scalable. It's not just like, how do I solve the technical challenges? It's how do I finance solving the technical challenges? You have to really bring those two things together. And frankly, I think the financing challenges are harder than the technical ones. Venture capital was a viable funding path. So we knew from the very beginning, like, we want to privately fund this because that gives us the capital and the freedom to move the way that we want to, at the pace that we want to, versus, kind of having to ask the government to fund all the development.
Piplica's pursuit of venture capital funding proved successful when he connected with billionaire Vinod Khosla in 2019.
It's funny, in the email he said, "We are probably a little too early for venture, but I'd love to pick your brain." I said, sure. I loved AJ and I loved the idea of Mach 5 flight and I loved his strategy. And I got my partner Sven involved and we had a great meeting. In literally a month or two, we had a term sheet signed. What's really exciting is this is a very dynamic company. defense has always been done the old way, if I might, the military industrial complex. Everything gets paid for by the military well in advance of even development of products. Nobody offers them a product to buy. They offer them research projects to go develop a capability, use lots of government dollars. You're incented to make it as expensive as possible. The new way is to develop a capability and offer it and do it very rapidly.
So I was aware of Hermeus when I was at Anduril. They were young, they were small. The biggest thing that caught my eyes when they did their Series B raise, they did a $100 million Series B. And so for a hardware company, that's a big indicator, right? Like, you need money to do this, and seeing them raise $100 million and who they raised it from was very important.
In 2022, Piplica brought on Zach Shore, who had worked in the business development side of defense tech firm Anduril.
Making the decision to kind of hire your first salesperson, most companies would wait till you had a product to do that.
It wasn't just sales talent that Shore added to the team. He also offered invaluable military experience.
When I got out of the Marine Corps, I went to business school, and my focus was, where the intersection of the military and national security, which is kind of an interesting space. Historically, that had really just been the Lockheed Martins, the Boeings of the world. There wasn't a lot of interesting work going on, let's say in 2010. There are not a lot of companies in the venture-backed world that are working on problems of the scale and impact as Hermeus on the hardware side. And so for me, taking the lessons of Anduril, the experience in the Marine Corps in Iraq and Afghanistan, and being able to apply it to a problem like this in a moment in time, geopolitically, was sort of like a perfect storm.
Moving into the final frontier, the challenge is primarily economic. While commercial space stations could become like scientific labs in orbit, able to do more types of experiments in zero gravity, the operational costs associated with human astronauts are prohibitively high. Enter Icarus. Founded by 2025 30 Under 30 lister Ethan Barris, the startup's mission is to develop AI-powered robots for commercial space stations. Icarus hopes to free up astronauts' time so they can focus on groundbreaking discoveries and science that only humans can perform. Ultimately, this could unlock new markets in pharmaceuticals, semiconductors, and more.
So tell me, what does Icarus actually do? Is the goal to literally put robots in space?
Yeah, inside of space stations. So we want to help out astronauts. So the ISS is deorbiting in 2030. And with that, we have this rise of new commercial space stations. And in these commercial space stations, we're trying to leverage the last 25 years of research and manufacturing on the ISS and produce really amazing things in the pharmaceutical sector, the semiconductor sector, fiber optics, super alloys, and a bunch of amazing industries. But the issue is astronauts cost a lot of money. It's about $130,000 an hour to keep them alive. And, most of the time, these astronauts are spending their time just moving cargo bags around or doing seal inspections or literally cleaning with a vacuum. And we want our robots to take care of that so they can focus on the groundbreaking discoveries that only astronauts can. And more recently, now that there's going to be uncrewed periods on these stations, actually do some of the science and bring those experiments forward and those discoveries forward.
How did you get the idea for this?
Well, I think it's a joint combination of my background and my co-founder, Jamie Palmer's background. So I was lucky enough to get my first NASA internship when I was 17. And I have to shout out one of my teachers, Mr. Gershner, because I didn't really want to go into engineering. I like building things, and I wanted to play soccer, right? I worked to 4 years varsity soccer, was on the developmental academy for playing in the National Premier League and Division I soccer. And then this guy was like, hey, you need a tech credit to graduate. And it was this teacher. And I was like, sure, I'll take your class. And he happened to be one of the most amazing mechanical engineers and had this program that led to a NASA internship in your junior and senior years. And I actually dropped the class. He tracked me down and told me to take the rest of them. And it was like a semester late that I rejoined. And I was lucky enough to get that internship and work on autonomous plant growth for the ISS and go present at the ISS R&D conference and see what it was like to build spaceflight hardware that goes to the International Space Station. And that's where I was exposed to all these other industries outside of plants. And what Jamie's background is, he's one of the most amazing roboticists that I've met. So he graduated from the University of Trinity Dublin, actually. He's Irish.
Okay.
And he used to work for Akara. It was a startup that during COVID was making those, those autonomous UV disinfection robots that would go
Okay.
around and disinfect
Yes,
environments. So he worked on that. And then he built a career in Formula One at Mercedes and won races there with Mercedes, and then started to come back to Colombia because he realized that his passion was robotics and not making two cars go fast. And so he got a full ride to Colombia to do dexterous manipulation, did the redesign of one of Time Magazine's best inventions, which was like a dexterous robot hand. And one day we're sitting in the office together when we're talking about companies and businesses that we want to build and what our life's work could be. And I'm talking about the benefits of space and how the best cancer therapeutic on Earth that we have is from in-space research and all these different markets that we can unlock, and just how hard it is to get astronaut time. Because I remember fighting for like 5 minutes of an astronaut's time. And he just looks at me, and we had been friends for a while at this point. And he's just like, "You're the biggest idiot I've ever met. This is the best argument anyone's ever made for a robotic labor force." And then that's what really kicked it off. And after that, we went to interview everyone from astronauts to people on the ISS ops planning team to researchers and universities.
That's incredible story. Also, soccer to NASA, crazy pivot. But it's one thing to have the idea, but how do you actually execute on that? How have you, if I'm correct, you are going to have your first test flight in 2027. So how did we get to that point?
So it definitely started with talking to a lot of people. We wanted to know if it was actually a pain point and what this new commercial era of space looks like. And we have rockets launching almost every single day now, payloads to low Earth orbit. And with the government moving away from low Earth orbit and going to the moon and Mars, now industry can take place. So the first thing was to talk to these guys. Where are they going to actually generate their money? Do they care about the science? Do they care about the manufacturing? And then, like I said, talking to the astronauts. What do they actually do all day? What do they spend their time on? And you find out they spend 8 hours sleeping and 2 hours exercising and then calling home and doing things so they don't go crazy. And then the little portion of the day that they do have to do work is, housekeeping. And you really want these astronauts that are trained for bunches of years and come from some of the most insane military backgrounds to do science. And we realized that not only is there a lot of economic value, but it makes sense and it will be beneficial to people. And the people that we work with, and we're lucky enough to actually launch the ISS with, so NASA, ISS National Lab, and Voyager, agreed with us, and they helped us get there, and they reduced the barrier of entry. And where we have questions of, how does this work, and can we actually do this, they help us solve that. And that transition from like government work to commercial work is really key, because what we can do with robotics now is amazing. And when you work with NASA and at NASA, there's a lot of red tape, for better or for worse. One of the things we talk about all the time is this idea of flight heritage. So there's this database of things like from nuts, bolts, and washers all the way down to full computers. And if it's flown to space, it flies again. And so there's not much forward progress because no one wants to requalify something if it's safe. And we're lucky enough to work with partners that will allow us to push the boundaries of what's ever been sent before.
Okay, yeah, I was going to ask, why commercial and why not work with the government?
Yeah, the government is amazing, and NASA was founded. We're on the moon 11 years later, but it moves at the speed of government sometimes. And with these new commercial entities, one example is VAST. VAST is a new commercial space station company. They were founded in 2020, 2021, I believe, and their launch to low Earth orbit with their space station is May of next year. And it's this insane growth curve that you've never seen before that's unlocked this new era of commercial space. And it's like this new golden era of the Apollo missions where we're moving so fast in that idea of NASA being founded and we're on the moon 11 years later. We're seeing that same resurgence and that same excitement about what we can do in space with these commercial entities. And that's one of the best things that we could ever be a part of.
Finally, true scientific progress often faces deep skepticism and intense regulatory scrutiny. For companies working on longevity treatments, the first challenge is proving the science works. Loyal, a startup on our 2025 Next Billion Dollar Startups list, is working to make drugs to extend the lifespans of dogs. If it can prove to American regulators that its treatments can help Fido live longer, the next step could be grandma.
The broader thesis of the drugs that we've chosen and the mechanisms we have chosen is, one, things that are extremely well validated across organisms beyond dogs, right? So these mechanisms are mechanisms that have been shown to extend lifespan in worms and yeast and mice. This isn't something that's specific to dogs or specific to a breed of dog, but instead it's just foundational to how organisms have evolved to age. And the ways in which they have evolved to age less healthily or more healthily. The kind of food you give your dog, the genetic luck that your dog has, how often you run with your dog, or whatever has happened to them in their lives, that's going to impact their individual aging trajectory. And so you really have to find a biological mechanism that will not be impacted by all that variability, and instead is much more foundational and fundamental to how life works. And that's really what we've gone after.
Loyal is now running what may be the largest clinical trial ever conducted in animal health.
It's about 1,300 dogs across the US that are taking either our drug or a placebo, and it's blinded, so we don't know. The veterinarians don't know. Obviously, the dog owner doesn't know. I guess the dog doesn't know either if they're on the real drug or not. And we're gonna be following these dogs for the next 4 to 5 years, for the rest of their lives, to understand how did they age, what diseases do they get, what are they diagnosed with, what levels in their blood go up or down over time, to then be able to distinctly quantify at the end, hopefully, a lifespan and health span benefit of the dogs who are treated with our drug over the placebo.
When we started the study, our goal was 1,000 patients, and people said, "You're crazy, you'll never get 1,000 people to enroll in a study like this." And we've reached 1,300 because there's just an outpouring of enthusiasm. People are really excited about being part of the study because they hope that maybe the medication will help their dog, but also because they want to be part of helping us to develop something new that will help other people's dogs in the future.
We actually very intentionally are not doing centralized trials, we're doing decentralized trials. We want to capture the breadth of diversity that you have in the average dog, right? We don't just want Silicon Valley, super bougie dogs on $500 dog food. We don't just want, pure breeds or just working dogs. We want the dog that sleeps on the couch all day and a dog that runs a marathon with its owner. We want the dog that's purebred. We want the mutt that somebody rescued from the shelter. And we are doing that in part by ensuring we have a huge geographic and socioeconomic diversity in the vet clinics that we have chosen, so that we're able to capture that variability and adequately assess the benefit of our longevity drugs on that diversity. And that's really important when you're looking at something like aging, because aging is extremely complicated and you need to be able to tease that out.
We're going to get an incredible goldmine of data about how dogs age, about the diseases they get, the causes of those things. And I think that's really going to advance the field of geriatrics in veterinary medicine. We're going to help other researchers and veterinarians to take better care of senior dogs, even beyond the drugs that we're developing. Part of the reason that I encounter skepticism when I talk to people about extending lifespan in dogs is that the field of longevity research is pretty well known, and unfortunately there's a lot of not very scientifically legitimate stuff being talked about out there. And it's sometimes hard to distinguish really good science from sort of fake science or marketing of new ideas that aren't really legitimate. There are always a few skeptics who say, well, gosh, aging is not something we can do anything about. It's just sort of an inevitable part of the universe. But when we explain a little bit about how it works and how we already know from research science that you can extend lifespan and delay all of the diseases of aging, then that skepticism often turns to excitement.
From geopolitics in drone production and funding aerospace to the economics of space and the regulatory hurdles for longevity, these leaders prove that true innovation is not about solving simple problems, but strategically confronting the most difficult ones.